Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has proposed a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin in a rare open letter to the Russian leader. The development came as Russian air defenses came under attack from Ukrainian long-range drones. In his open letter, Zelensky wrote that Ukraine is seeking to end the war with a face-to-face engagement between him and Putin. He proposed to set a clear date for one such meeting and assured that there would be complete ceasefire during the negotiations. Zelensky published the letter a day after Ukrainian drones hit St. Petersburg as Putin's home city hosted a major international economic forum this week, which begs the question, are both sides ready to end the war or not? Well, the Ukrainian leader has repeatedly called for a meeting with the Russian president, saying only face-to-face talks will yield an agreement on the territory. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said that Russian president is aware of Zelensky's letter. And speaking to the reporters in St. Petersburg, Peskov said Putin would be briefed about the letter after end of Uzbek president's visit. According to Russian media, Peskov also said that Volodymyr Zelensky is welcome to meet his Russian counterpart in Moscow at any time. While U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed optimism about the letter by Zelensky, Trump said that he is glad that both leaders were talking about meeting.
I don't know. I'm glad that they're maybe talking about meeting. I think we had a lot to do with it. I know exactly what you're doing. But I think it would be great if they met. They should get it done.
On the other side, Russian President Vladimir Putin has indicated to make what he called some compromises for a peace deal with Ukraine. Speaking on the sidelines of Russia's annual economic forum, Putin said that Russia would defeat Ukraine on the battlefield if necessary, but added that he is ready to end the war via diplomacy and would honor the terms he had agreed with U.S. President Trump when both met in Alaska.
I would add this. We are absolutely ready and willing to reach an agreement with Ukraine through peaceful means and on the basis we discussed at our meeting with President Trump in Anchorage. At that meeting, Russia was asked to consider certain compromises, and Russia is willing to accept the compromises we discussed in Anchorage. But the Ukrainian side must also agree to these compromises, and then the conflict will quickly come to its natural conclusion.
Well, Putin noted that U.S. has switched its attention away from trying to end the Ukraine conflict since it launched its own war against Iran.
Right now, the issue of resolving another crisis, the one involving Iran, is extremely pressing. And, naturally, we can all see and understand that the U.S. administration is being forced to shift its attention and deal with this issue above all others.
And amidst the statements, both sides have raised their stakes when it comes to the war. Ukraine said it will make the Swedish Gripen fighter jet as a backbone of its air force to confront Russia. Zelensky had repeatedly requested advanced F-35 Lightning warplanes to counter the Russian Air Force, but U.S. have not provided F-35s. At the same time, Putin has claimed that Russia had not yet used its Escalating hypersonic missile against Ukraine in real combat conditions, but had only tried it out to observe the results. And well, to discuss on this from Arizona in U.S., we are now being joined by Dr. Leda L. Roslicki, founder, Black Trident Defense and Security Consulting Group in Ukraine. And from St. Petersburg in Russia, we are being joined by Dr. Gilbert Doctorow, an international affairs analyst, author, and historian. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us on the broadcast. Of course, I'll begin by asking a common question to both of you. I'll go to, of course, Dr. Roslicki first. Are Russia and Ukraine generally seeking peace, or is this another, are they trying to just strengthen their negotiating positions at this moment?
Well, Russian position towards peace in Ukraine is taking away huge portions of Ukrainian territory and population. So we can see this as if there are people inside of Ukraine in powerful positions who are willing to give up huge territories, then Russia will be happy. But at this point in time, it seems more like political positioning, which is directly connected to the war in Iran, which is definitely going to be spinning out of control soon.
Dr. Rowe, I'd like to come to you now. What are your first reactions to this open letter by Zelensky asking for a face-to-face talk with Putin?
Well, I think it's very well written. He has chosen his words to greatest possible effect. At the same time, let us be clear that what we are talking about is a demand for Russian capitulation, just as the Russian terms of Mr. Putin are a demand for Ukrainian capitulation. And that has been the situation for the last couple of years, whenever negotiations to end the war has come up. Mr. Zelensky has not included any of his terms within his letter, only let's meet. At the same time, Mr. Putin has done similarly. Yes, let's meet. But what are they going to talk about and what are they going to agree about is diametrically opposed. So these exchanges do not bring us any closer to peace.
Dr. Rostiki, and now, of course, if in your perspective, is Ukraine negotiating from a position of strength or is it a necessity at this point?
Well, at this point in time, Ukraine in this war is the only country that is going to be capitulating. The Russians have invaded Ukraine. We have, the Ukrainians, no military power and no position to force the Russian Federation to capitulate. What the Ukrainians have is a growing and increasing power and interest, particularly related to its dynamic development of its defense industry, to show the Russian Federation that although we have a current administration in the United States, which is looking somewhere else at this moment, Ukraine has enough capability, the European Union is stepping up, and Russia will not stop without Ukraine's capitulation. Russia should stop to save this war that they started to not become a global war, which is going to be directly related to what is happening in Israel and Iran.
Dr. Rowe, of course, Dr. Rostiki has also talked about capitulation. When Putin talks about the Alaska compromises, is he referring to this genuine mutual concessions, or is he simply just asking Ukraine to accept Russian territorial gains?
Well, he's talking about what he initially mentioned when the war started, and that is that Russia takes the Donbass, which has been largely, if not predominantly, Russian-speaking, and was under severe pressure from the government in Kiev after the 2014 change in government. But I think we have to mention, your audience must be aware that in the last 2 days, the Russian position has changed dramatically as a result of these equally dramatic drone strikes deep into Russian territory, killing civilians, attacking a bus, for example, yesterday or a train in Crimea, and killing civilians. But more importantly, of course, that famous incident in which 21 female students of a teaching college were killed in drone attacks, waves of drone attacks. The response of Russia is that we will use nuclear weapons next against Ukraine. This was said openly by the deputy foreign minister, Sergei Ryabkov, who represents, I would say, the hard line in Russian diplomacy, as opposed to a very emollient, soft position of his boss, Mr. Lavrov, who is representing literally what President Putin is saying. So we are at a turning point. When you say there's a danger of World War III starting, it's very real. Let's not kid ourselves. And it's right in front of our noses. So this has to be addressed in this discussion and elsewhere.
All right. Dr. Rostiki, I saw you reacting to that comment. Would you like to react to that or give your points on that?
Well, I would like to narrow on the nuclear question and focus on the fact that Ukraine is already ready for the Russians to illegally use tactical nuclear weapons against Ukraine. In the last 10 days, 14 days, we have had the most massive attacks against the capital of Ukraine And these attacks have almost not been covered by the international media at all, particularly in the United States. So this is a win for the Russian Federation. The question is, how much more killing and death is going to be appreciated by the mercantilists? Because it's not about values and principles, as we saw in the presentations in the Petersburg conference with Malafeyev and Dugin. This is about power and control, but it's about resources. And when we are just focusing on resources, they're going to use any type of weapon with complete disregard for children, lives, and is going to escalate. So one of the things that we're hoping for is that somebody in the Russian Federation, Putin is not that person, will finally step up to the plate and be able to speak from a Russian perspective, a pre-Soviet perspective. And I think that if we get into that element of discussion, we could maybe get into some sort of peace talk.
And Dr. Rose, so of course, U.S. Trump has reacted saying it's positive that both the sides want to come together on the table. The last time where the talks happened, it was between Trump and Putin, and Ukraine was not really involved. So whatever compromises that Putin had put forward, of course, Ukraine was not really part of that. How do you assess the U.S.'s role at this time?
Zero. Back in October, November, the same Sergei Ryabkov, whom I referred to making these remarks 2 days ago with respect to use of nuclear weapons, he said that at this point in October, early November, the Anchorage agreements, the atmosphere, the spirit of Anchorage had dissipated, and that the war diplomacy no longer had a role, and the war would be solved on the field of battle. He was immediately reprimanded by his boss, Sergei Lavrov, but 3 weeks later, Lavrov was saying the same thing. So there are positions within the Russian top administration which are contradictory. The likelihood of this going to a nuclear dimension is a very sad development, but it's a direct consequence of the failure of the top leadership in Russia to fight the war. They have done it with one arm behind the back. And even what my co-panelist was talking about, this massive strike on Kiev, was not what Putin should have done, according to the opinion of many in his entourage, in the elites, and even in the broad public. He said at the outset of the war, he would strike the decision-making centers. That means the political leadership of Ukraine. Did he do that in this massive strike? I asked my fellow colleague. No. He hit strictly military targets in Kiev. He did not knock out your Rada. He did not kill Mr. Zelensky. He did nothing in the way of destroying decision-making centers. So he has not gone all the way.
I understand. I see Dr. Osiki would like to react to that. Unfortunately, we do not have much time regarding that. But of course, it looks like a positive development nonetheless. We will like to see a face-to-face talk and probably an end to this war. Thank you to both of you panelists for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.